So what's super interesting about The Witcher Blood Origin is that not only is it Netflix currently number one show as of this recording, it's also breaking the record for their worst audience score of all time, which means there are a lot of people watching it, but at the same time, there are a lot of people giving it horrible reviews over on places like Tomato Meter. I love calling it that. um, it's an interesting thing. The reality is that if you're someone who likes fantasy and you just like fun television, you're probably going to enjoy this show. Does it have its flaws? Hell yeah. It also has the same flaws that shows like, say, Willow have. Um, there are issues with some bad writing, some tropiness, and everything else, but I don't think it descends to the same level of uh, sort of just really bad storytelling as Rings of Power, which was trying really hard to be something that it's not. In my opinion, The Witcher Blood Origin kind of embraces the fact that it's not trying to be anything groundbreaking here. It's just telling a story. And that story is basically exploring the beginning of Andrzej Sapkowski's world, which is dealing with the conjunction of the spheres, where all the worlds merge, which breaks open the portals and brings monsters to the world of men. Also dealing with the very first Witcher, and as they mention here in this article, the pre-collapsed Elven civilization. Um, Currently, it only has an 8% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. It says, for comparison, Netflix first season of Resident Evil had an audience score of 22%, and Hype House clawed a score of 4% higher than Blood Origin at 12%. Critics don't seem to be too fond of the Witcher prequel either, as it currently sits at 38% from their reviews. Um, and of course, Forbes is reporting that it's a double-edged sword because it's the number one show right now, dominating the holiday season after its smash hit Wednesday. But even though it is number one, people don't seem to be enjoying it. However, if you dig deeper into the reviews, you're gonna find a common theme cropping up, which is the same theme that I saw being lambasted at Willow, and it's a similar theme from what we saw being lambasted at Rings of Power. And this is the idea that most of the people who seem to be upset with the show aren't upset about anything other than one thing: anger at diversity and the woke agenda, using air quotes here, with many upset at the fact that they're using sign language in the show, which mean that many of these reviews are coming from people who are racist, sexist, and ableist points of view. And they said here, one look at Twitter and several of the same sentiments can be found, with people slating it for having a woman lead, decrying the lack of a male lead from a series set 1,200 years after the show. Others upset at woke casting, supposedly copied over from the Rings of Power. And I love how they wrote this in the article, which, as we know, invented diversity. This person skimmed, read 31-star reviews on IMDb, and mostly copy pasted the same, which is basically a bunch of racist and misogynist commentaries. Um, Basically, people complaining about medieval Polish forests populated by Botoxed black elves, metrosexuals, and there has to be the obligatory strong woman who, despite women being biologically, physically inferior to men, are of course mighty warriors and whack people around. Oh, it's also cowardly with no guts for originality or edge, so cliched and formulaic, utterly devoid of intelligence or wit, and this just pathetically bland, unwatchable slosh. Another key reason mentioned in several of the negative reviews is the Henry Cavill news, with many claiming that he left due to the showrunner's hatred of the source material, demanding he be brought back. However, worth noting is that Blood Origin is a prequel separate from the main show, so it's hardly relevant, as according to this article over at The Gamer. Um, it is worth noting here that they mention landing as Netflix's worst audience score isn't necessarily an indicator of quality, and even if it's not great, the number is being dragged down by recent news and a bigoted mentality, and I can't disagree. For all the hate that I saw people giving Rings of Power, Chris and I gave that show a fair shake. Chris loved it. She gave it an 8 out of 10. I did not love it. I'm kind of in the Brandon Sanderson camp when his buddy across from him was like, "Yeah, I give it an 8 out of 10," and Brandon Sanderson went, "Ooh, really? 8 out of 10?" Like that's how I feel about Chris giving Rings of Power 8 out of 10. But I didn't review the Rings of Power I didn't review it poorly because of any sort of woke agenda. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, I've rewatched it twice. I've watched it once and rewatched it once. I guess not rewatched, but I've watched it through twice. Once on my own for my own review series, and once with Chris. And at no point in time did I ever see any actual woke agenda in the Rings of Power. I did see a whole lot of really bad writing and just a really poor attempt to forcefully try to recreate Tolkien and write that novel that Tolkien ever wrote. But I did never see any forced wokeness in it, nor did I ever find any woke agenda. And I think that anybody who did see a woke agenda in it is just literally making that up. I think they're literally making that part of it up. Same thing with Willow. I've seen people talking about how this, for example, the fact that they've got Kit and Jade having a romantic relationship, that has not been the forefront of the story at all. It has been an underlying side theme of the story, and it's being done, in my opinion, in a very casual way. It's not being forced in there, it's just being done as a way to create a different type of princess character. And it's the trope behind Princess Kit would be that she's the tomboy, right? Like, oh, it's that trope of like the princess doesn't want to be a princess, and she doesn't want to wear the dresses, and she wants to be a prince, she wants to be a knight, and she wants to wield a sword. That was the trope. Having her be in love with her best friend, I felt was a nod to it and been done in a very tasteful way. I haven't found that to be forced at all. I haven't seen any other forced agendaism in. I mean, if you want to go down that right, then you should be claiming that Willow is all about forced diversity because they have, and forgive me for not knowing the politically correct term these days. Is it little people? I believe back in the day we would say dwarves, but I don't know the politically correct term to refer to um, um, individuals like Warwick Davis who have that genetic structure. Um, you know, if you really want to get down to it and claim that there's some sort of forcedness, then you would claim that. But the reality is, these shows I have found don't actually have any sort of forced woke agenda. It's just a bunch of angry people on the internet. I watched George R. R. Martin do an interview recently where he was talking about this whole uprising of people who come out of the woodwork and just try to review bomb things the moment they don't like them. And he had some very insightful things to say. I'll probably make a video around it in the new year because I found it to be a very intelligent, point of view from an older gentleman who has dealt with his own share of criticism over the years. Um, I digress. At the end of the day, is Blood Origin a bad show? It's not the greatest show of all time. Is it entertaining? I think it has its entertaining moments. It's not something that I really care to review on my channel, but it is something that I watched Nightmare of the Wolf as an example and didn't review that on my channel. I loved it. Chris loved it. I don't usually like anime stuff, but it was a very fun adventure in the Witcher universe. This is also a very interesting look at the creation of the first Witcher and the conjunction of the spheres, and I think it's a story that was worth telling. I don't think it has any of the woke agenda issues that the review bombers are claiming it does, but I do think it has its problems with some poor writing, some poor action sequences, and despite the fact that it has an actress who I really respect and admire for the things she's done over the years, I don't think this is one of her best performances. But it is what it is. It's not meant to be groundbreaking television. It's a one season, one off, prequel tale that is spun around and is literally just sort of a marketing tool to push people towards the next season of The Witcher. I think personally, and this is mentioned in the article, I think most people's emotions right now are tied to the fact that everyone's pissed off about Henry Cavill leaving. And so they have all this blame that they want to put, and so they're lashing out in the only way they know how, and this happens to be the easiest place to place all that blame is right here in the now. So I think that's what people are doing. I think if you like the world of The Witcher, and you enjoy the universe that the author originally created, that being Andrzej Sapkowski, if you like this world and you like the lore, give it a shot. It's worth watching. Is it the greatest thing you've ever seen? No. Neither is Willow. But it's fun, entertaining. It's a way to spend some time, waste some time if you want to look at it that way. It's just another piece of entertainment. Um, I don't think it's the best thing that's ever been written. I don't think it's the worst thing that's ever been written. But I don't think it's an 8%. I think that's just a bunch of angry internet trolls who are upset about the fact that there's no white male lead and that Henry Cavill's not attached to The Witcher anymore. That's just my thoughts. Anyway, love to hear yours. I'm sure I'll get plenty of ranty comments below and downvotes. But if you happen to like this, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon so you get more of this as I continue into the new year, covering lots of different TV shows and video games and beyond. Support the channel with a membership down below. Super thanks, super chats, super stickers, and don't forget the Patreon page and our Discord. I'll see everybody in the next video. Peace!